And we're back! Oh my gosh, it's been forever.
It's been a while.
And it's been a long time since Ben's been here.
Right.
Forever.
Never. This is Ben.
Hi.
Pain.
He was walking by, he had a beard, so we added him.
You're perfect.
Boom.
Seems like a good fit to me.
Thanks for joining us, because this
Is Geek&Stein. So, we just got through watching what I thought was a pretty good documentary. It ran a little long, but it was called The Prequels Strike Back. And it was the new documentary available on Amazon and YouTube about the Star Wars prequels.
When you were pitching this, you approached us as how this documentary was going to sell us on how the prequels were just as good, if not better, than the original trilogy.
Yeah, and by the way you're saying this, I can tell that I was 100% right.
Yeah. Yeah, the best, honestly, I really like Kevin Smith, and the best stuff was when Kevin Smith was on screen.
Yeah.
There was some levity, you know what I mean, brought some...
Sure.
And he had a great point. He was like, you know, we grew up loving these Star Wars movies, and now we've got adults, who grew up loving the prequels, and it's just that we've always been the loudest voice in the room, you know what I mean? But we've got, a group of people someone who would have been 5 or 6 watching The Phantom Menace is now an adult, you know what I mean? Now entering the workforce, and because that's something that none of us, we don't have that experience. I don't have the experience of not seeing a Star Wars movie before and seeing The Phantom Menace. I only know what it's like to watch The Phantom Menace following the original Star Wars prequel. That's going to put a very different spin on how people relate to these movies, I think.
Yeah, and what I liked, and probably my favorite line of the whole documentary was, no matter what your takes are on Star Wars and the prequels, the expanded universe, whatever, one person said it best when he said, why are we complaining about this? Nobody forces you to see Star Wars.
That's true.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about Star Wars, there's comic books, there's TV shows, there's movies, you can have as much Star Wars as little as you like. The prequels don't ruin the classic trilogy. They were made after the classic trilogy. You can ignore they exist.
Yeah.
And they're not even referenced really in The Force Awakens, so you can keep on going about your day after that.
And yet, I think it's less about the fact that the prequels ruin Star Wars for me. They don't ruin it. I still love it. I still love them. Yeah, well, I do too. I'd be fast up to that. But I still love the original trilogy. That it doesn't ruin it in any way. But there is the kind of scorn of what could have been. I sit and watch those movies and I go, I could have had a great story. There could have been a great movie here, and I got this. And so I think for me personally, that's more of what I'm lamenting in the prequel trilogy is I could have had 3 great movies. Instead, I've got 3 mediocre Star Wars movies.
It was interesting what you mentioned about the prequels not really adding a whole lot to The Force Awakens. Because some of my family reached out to me because I'm...
You're the resident geek.
Yeah, they're like...
Call Justin, he'll know.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, we know there's a new Star Wars movie coming out. We really want to go see it. Do you have copies of the Star Wars movies that we can watch? And which ones should we watch?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I've got episode, 4, 5, and 6. I think you'd do well to watch those leading up to that. And they're like, well, we don't need to watch 1, 2, or 3. I'm like, you could probably skip over those for this one, but maybe worth a watch down the road if you want.
Yeah.
Force Awakens itself, and it seems that Disney, in my opinion, is definitely kind of taking a stand going, we stand on the original trilogy. And we're just going to kind of not talk about the prequels. In a roundabout way, this documentary is trying to make a point of like, hey, maybe the prequels aren't as bad as everybody thought. It's kind of the general, when you say that's kind of the general idea.
Whether you like them or not, I think there's something to them there.
Yeah.
They're not just abortions.
I agree with that. I mean,
there's good parts and there's bad parts. And you just kind of have to take the bad with the good.
Yeah. As a big fan of practical effects, and they touched on this, and it really got me thinking. They're like, if you love practical effects, like in the original, that was practical effect heavy, that's great. We had tons of practical effects in the prequels. They were in there.
They say that, and
Somewhere.
then every single shot that they showed in that documentary was like an abortion of CGI. Just terrible.
If there were practical effects in the movie, it's really hard to see them. I mean, I can't even think of any scene that
They've been touched up, right?
Right.
Yeah, CG.
They've been photoshopped.
Yeah.
essentially.
Underneath there, if you look
Somewhere
closely and squint.
is an actual model somewhere.
Yeah.
But I would have no idea if I hadn't seen
Yeah,
something like this.
I figured it was all green screen.
Now I'm curious, Ben, how do you approach Star Wars? Where did you get interested in it? And what do you feel about the prequels?
Definitely got interested as a kid. Started with the prequels first, but some of my fondest memories are rewatching the Phantom Menace over and over and over and over again. But that's about where it stopped. The second movie only a few times, and then by the third movie I only saw it once.
Mm-hmm.
The Phantom Menace has great parts, and as a kid you tend to overlook bad parts of movies way easier than as an adult. And so as a kid, you just enjoy the film instead of analyzing bad acting or poor choices in story or anything like something like that.
We actually talked about. I hold the opinion that Phantom Menace is probably the best of the prequels.
Yeah.
Now, that's maybe an unpopular opinion.
It is.
It's. I think it's.
You're dumb for
I
liking
think it's the best of the prequels.
Poo-poo
and
on
when I
you.
say the best, that's a very low bar for the. That's already setting it way low, and then out of those three, it's probably the best of the three. I think we all can agree that Attack of the Clones is the worst of the three. Maybe the worst of the seven.
It's the worst of the seven.
Yeah, Attack of the Clones is the worst of the seven, for sure. But then Revenge of the Sith seems to be that one that I maybe stand. I'm the cheese in this one because I don't think it's very good. I'm standing alone. I don't think it's great. I think it's a little overrated. I think that there's a misconception amongst fans at the time. They were so berated by terrible Star Wars movies that by the time that one came out, they were just happy that it wasn't,
as bad
as bad as Attack of the Clones.
Right.
And I think that there's this idea that like darker's better, and they're like, it's really dark. It's like, okay, but is it good?
I love Revenge of the Sith. It's my second favorite Star Wars movie. I love it. I love it. Ever.
Of
Of all the Star
Oh
Wars
my
movies, it's
God.
number 2 for me. There's awesome battles.
I'll occasionally look over at his computer screen and there's like Anakin, like scarred, big bushy-haired Anakin,
terrible.
and it's a digital
We
painting.
saw some clips from Revenge of the Sith, and I feel like we were all cringing at even the Revenge of the Sith.
I'm like,
scenes
why
were
is that
bad.
on there?
They showed the bad ones.
They showed the
pulled
bad
the
ones.
bad ones
It was
out.
like, oh.
They pulled the bad ones out, but you get a great Anakin Obi. I'm not going to sit here and defend the entire movie. But
You like Revenge, but let's put this in context. You like Revenge of the Sith more than you like A New Hope,
yeah, A New Hope's a good movie. I'm not dogging A New Hope.
Yeah.
Brian's Star Wars adventure began kind of late. If I recall you saying, like, you kind of came
Yeah.
into Star Wars
About
like
97.
For us, and maybe this isn't everybody's story, but like I was a kid. I was like 4 when I was watching the. So, but you came in through card game.
My older brother was a big Star Wars fan, had all the toys.
Yeah.
But then he would flip on Empire Strikes Back when I was a kid, and I'd see white and snow and be like, this is boring. And I was like, so my buddy down the street was playing the Star Wars card game. Star Wars CCG, and I got into it big time then. Big time.
Now, Ben, what about you? How did you? What brought you to the Star Wars world?
I would have to say it was my parents, for sure. They had the VHS tapes.
Yes.
It was one of the movies that we were allowed to watch. They were just so amazing that we just watched them over and over again, as kids often do. My first taste of Star Wars would be with the special editions, though. I never had access to the originals.
Yeah.
So that's
was me
an
too.
interesting tidbit. Wow. But also, at the same time,
like part of me's like
I know.
real sad.
I know. Even though I grew up with the Star Wars special editions, which had the CGI and all that stuff, I was born in the 80s. So when I watched movies, it was mostly in the 90s. So I didn't see all the 80s stuff until I was a little older. But I am in love with 80s sci-fi.
Yeah.
It is my absolute favorite thing to watch. The models, the special effects, the attention to detail is what I love about those kinds of movies. The sounds.
The grit.
Yes. Realistic grit, not generated grit.
No.
Isn't there a romantic element to your Star Wars story?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. As kids, my wife and I, we played computer games. And There is a fantastic number of Star Wars video games. One of them was, it's called Jedi Knight, Star Wars Dark Forces 2. You could play it online, multiplayer. That is how I originally met my wife, is locking lightsabers in a video game virtual world.
Nice.
And
Romantic.
So
Sweet.
as friends, obviously, at first.
Yeah.
But,
Sure.
You know,
But
that's
then-
how it started.
Yeah.
Our love of Star Wars brought us together.
That's
Cue the show me your lightsaber jokes.
Yeah.
yeah. It's poetic, man.
That rolling in the grass,
Oh,
Padme and
yeah.
Anakin, that's for you.
But that's what I thought of when I found my love for
It's us. Shot for shot.
He's at dinner trying to pull the fruit over.
The fake fruit. Let's talk about that fruit for a second. So they don't show it, which I was really kind of bummed in the documentary that they don't show the bite.
Oh, the
But
bite.
in that's Attack of the Clones, right? I'm
Yes,
pretty sure.
yes.
They're having dinner, and there's like fruit. He like force moves over to him. He like cuts a piece of it.
Yeah.
It's on a fork, and he eats it, and it's like, I mean, it looks like he's eating air.
You don't know what Naboo fruit is like.
Wow,
you
that's
don't know
true.
that if you had a piece of Naboo fruit right now,
That
you
it
put it
wouldn't-
to your mouth, it would just dissolve
It
instantaneously
wouldn't
and
look like
disappear.
eating CG fruit. Like
Yeah, don't act like you know what
that's
Naboo
true.
fruit is.
Fair enough.
If I'm dining, with the senator, I'm expecting a little bit more on the cuisine. Than just
She's
fruit.
got to keep her shapely figure somehow. Did you see her in that dominatrix
I
outfit?
did. God bless you, Padme.
I'd like to see like behind the scenes, like how George Lucas came to that decision point. All right, we've got this great scene. We're gonna do all this stuff with this fruit. Just pretend the fruit's there. We'll do it in post.
Yeah.
It seems silly to me. Like, why not just have a piece of
Tell
fruit
you how-
there?
how-
It looked exactly. It didn't look crazy. It looked like a pear.
And
Somebody forgot
action.
the fruit.
Yeah.
Who didn't bring the fruit?
What's his thing?
Cut.
Faster. More intense.
More intense.
We talked about Special Edition. When Special Edition came out, of course, people complained about it up and down, particularly
Yes.
one scene. When the prequels came out, people complained about them. Recently, when the expanded universe was obliterated by Disney, people complained about it.
That's true.
Does
Nobody-
anybody care when people complain? I mean, I'm of the mindset that if you're complaining about Star Wars, you've got nothing better going on in your life. I mean, it's one thing to critique something and say, this is bad because of this. I mean, people do that. That's
Yeah.
a discussion.
Yeah,
That's a
right.
discussion. But then there's a whole bunch of, and we've experienced it with pretty much every single one of
Everything
our videos,
that
which are
we've
terrible.
done.
This is bad, go kill yourself.
Yeah. No context. No reasoning.
What is it with fans today
No
that
conversation.
think that their feelings are important?
Right.
You know?
Well,
Yeah.
well, just that
Don't spend your money on it.
that they can sit in judgment of something that someone else made, and not like it's fine to have an opinion about something, but sit in judgment in a way that I can like just pass out my judgment. I can just
You suck.
decree it, and like as if like there's no argument, there's no conversation that can be had here. I'm just gonna sit here and just decide for everybody. It's terrible.
And the worst thing is when big companies like Disney, they listen to these things. They get online, they see these, and they say, "Oh well, it's not very popular right now. We need to listen to these things." I mean,
The Force Awakens came out, and immediately the knee-jerk reaction was, "It's awesome!" And then it seems like it's pulled back a lot. Like, I see a lot of people kind of, like, talking about maybe it's not as good as people thought, or blah, blah, blah. I think it was great. I do think that if there's a lot of, I mean, they played it safe.
Yeah.
Like, but in some ways, I think Abrams delivered a movie that we were all asking for. And he looked
He
at
did.
what people were complaining about the prequels and went the opposite direction. You know what I mean? I think the Star Wars universe would not be hurt by something that is really fresh.
Yeah.
Something really different. Something that takes a chance.
even if it's got some bad elements to it.
How many bad elements?
Yeah, define bad
No,
elements.
we can have different but there's still a level, like watching that documentary, there was a lot I didn't agree with, because you can sit there all day and talk about how, the critics back in the time, like if you go back and read the reviews of the critics, like they didn't like the movies either. But the truth is that those movies are superior. I don't believe, like, I mean, you could sit here and say that that's my opinion, but I don't believe it is. I think that there is something quintessentially superior to Empire Strikes Back. compared to any of the prequel movies because it's good. It's just good. It's just like, it's really well done filmmaking. I sit down and I watch it. It operates cinematically on a level that is above not just the other Star Wars movies, but in my opinion, above a lot of other movies that are constituent to that time. Other movies that came out in 1980. Dude, I just watched Deathstalker, I think. A terrible 80s fantasy movie. It's terrible.
It is
Sounds
really
awesome.
bad.
It's terrible. It was great. I mean, I loved it.
Great because
But it's terrible, and it's like, oh my gosh, dude, this movie probably came out a few years after Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back is a piece of cinematic history to me. I mean, it's amazing. It's a well-constructed, well-written, well-directed film. And even now, a decade later, that's not something I can say about the prequel.
And taking Empire, like, and just watching that by itself, I don't think you'd have as much of that respect and luster. You need the other two.
Sure, yeah.
To have it.
From a story standpoint,
Right.
Like from a mythological standpoint.
I would disagree with you there. I could just watch Empire Strikes Back and love it all by itself.
Sure.
I think
But
I could too.
I grew up watching Empire.
Right.
I didn't. The New Hope, I didn't have a copy of, so
Right.
it was always Empire.
Yeah.
And then when I went and watched,
It's enriched by the others,
when I watched New Hope, I'm like, oh, this is him before this.
Yeah.
That's the fun of Star Wars for me, is that you get these different stories and they all build on each other. And you're right, the prequels are better just because they're Star Wars. And Rogue One, to me, it's going to be better because it has a character from the Clone Wars cartoon in it.
Yeah.
Even if I get a bad spin-off movie, I'm still going to appreciate it a lot more than a bad movie, period.
Yeah.
Because it's Star Wars.
Sure.
And if we just complain about movies and we don't start discussions, we just say, go kill yourself for making this movie. That's a discussion ender. We can't make things
I
better.
agree.
And we're not going to get anything new.
Yeah.
We're only going to get the same old, same old. We're going to get a dozen Force Awakens.
Where do the prequels sit? Like tomato meter.
Only Phantom Menace is not fresh, and it's
Really?
it's barely not fresh. It's like 57.
Phantom Menace is the
56%.
lowest review.
Yeah, no, it might have shifted a little bit. For the
Yes.
longest time,
That's surprising.
it was fresh.
Yeah.
But over the years, more critics have weighed in, and it's kind of sunk down. And I think that's just an impact of the internet, also.
The best new character to come out of that trilogy, in my opinion, is Darth Maul.
Yeah,
And we only get him in Phantom Menace.
Yeah, and that speaks to a point that the documentary got on, and that's that these films are more visual films than they are films about plot.
Yeah.
And Darth Maul's a perfect example of that, because Darth Maul's not really an interesting
No,
villain.
he's not. I
He's
want him to be more.
He's visually very interesting. He's
Yeah.
awesome visually.
Yeah.
Well, I think his fandom is what sparked, again,
Yeah.
the Clone Wars cartoon.
Right.
If you can just
Yeah.
give it just a few more episodes.
So Star Wars and prequels and cartoons and Force Awakens and Rogue One coming. How do you guys feel about Star Wars now?
I have a new hope.
You know,
Is that terrible? Is that terrible? No.
No, he asked for it.
I am hopeful, though. I'm hopeful. Like I really, really like the feeling that I had. Because for me, ultimately, I think for everybody, really the cinematic experience boils down to the feeling you get. You're going to walk out. It doesn't matter how bad the movie was. You're going to walk out. Phantom Menace, I walked out, and I was joyful.
I don't know. I feel like the new movie just like verified that we're going in a good direction. I do hope they experiment some more, and I hope that they make it a little different, and they're not doing going backwards.
Yeah. So your midichlorian level is high.
Yes.
I mean,
Thank God that the word midichlorian wasn't
please.
mentioned
Yeah.
in Force Awakens.
Do you guys remember Star Wars fandom before the prequels came out? What was it like to be a Star Wars fan? I do, just because of the card game.
You know what's funny that you bring that up? I don't. Like, it was a little bit more of an isolated
Yeah.
experience.
It was a very niche interest.
Yeah.
You know, Star Trek fans definitely seem to outnumber Star Wars fans.
For sure.
And there were some books out, thanks to Tim Zahn, who kind of got that rolling. There were some comic books, but they weren't widely read. There wasn't a lot. And then you had a CCG come out, you had the special editions come out, and then you had the prequels.
Yeah.
And for as much as people hated the prequels, after the prequels were done, people hated them, but Star Wars fandom was way up.
For sure.
So you can take chances with Star Wars. the prequels didn't kill anybody's interest in Star Wars. It made more Star Wars fans. We were talking about them.
That's a super good point, dude.
And so they can go ahead and take these chances on these movies, and we're still going to love Star Wars. We're going to consume as much Star Wars.
Absolutely.
Being bit by that bug when Phantom Menace came out, like,
Yeah.
I hadn't seen the movie yet. I didn't know who these characters were, but I had to have their toys.
Yeah.
I had to have the action figures. Yeah, they're here, they're unopened still, you know, and I'm probably gonna.
These are we're seeing them.
Yeah, I'm either gonna end up selling them or leave them for my, my children to destroy. But I had to have them. But speaking of which, we should probably talk about our beverage.
Black Phillip. Justin and I last year went and saw this little movie.
Beverage.
The Witch. Jason, you've seen it, right?
I saw it.
There's a goat named Black Phillip. He spends most of the movie standing around.
I've never been so terrified of a goat in my life.
Brewed in Armada, Michigan. This is a cranberry and blood orange cider. So we don't normally drink ciders here on Geek&Stein. This is maybe our first.
It is.
Yeah.
It's not very sweet. It's a little watery on the mouthfeel. Like you drink it and it's a little watery.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of taste once it hits the back of your throat. It's all up front. You get the flavors. But if you're a fan of the Witch and you just want a can with a goat on it
With red eyes.
this is for you.
So I think we can wrap this up by, if I can paraphrase a little bit, like, hate them or love them, the prequels, really without them, I don't know that we would have sort of the culture of Star Wars that we have today. 'Cause
Indeed.
in a lot of ways, they did. I mean, like, you made a great point. Like, before the prequels came out, I love Star Wars, but it's not like there was this great Star Wars culture that I could, like, really connect with or tangibly kind of interact with. And now there definitely is. I mean, it's out there, and there's new stuff all the time that's adding to the mythology. So that's cool. It's a cool time to be a Star Wars fan.
Yeah. Yep. Cool time to be a Star Wars fan. Cheers to that.
Hey, thank you for joining us on this wonderful trip into the world of Star Wars, and we will see you next time on Geek&Stein.